Kaimere is a distant planet. It is defined by waves of life brought from Earth and set free to evolve independently in this new context. The indigenous life of the planet, swarms of microbes called magic by the people who live there, are what harvest Earth organisms and make copies on Kaimere. As the asteroid which concluded the Mesozoic never struck Kaimere, dinosaurs remain the dominant terrestrial megafauna. Throughout much of northern South America, a giant meanders through the brush, bringing tens of thousands of lives to grim conclusion every day. The giant anteater is arguably the largest member of the xenarthrans living today, though the giant armadillo gives it a run for its money in terms of mass. Most sloth and anteater in the clade pilosa are arboreal, while the giant anteater is terrestrial, making it stand out amongst living taxa. When we examine their extinct relatives, though, the giant anteater is suddenly far less unprecedented, with dozens of terrestrial sloths, many of which weighed over an order of magnitude heavier than today's biggest member. Most of the giant anteater's clade, however, are small arboreal anteaters. They do not appear to have shared the sloth family propensity for gigantism. This is also true of Kaimere, with several Tamandua species competing with pangolins for woodland insectivore niches. One anteater in Kaimere, though, follows in the footsteps of Earth's giant anteater, though it takes this trend to new extremes. The Goliath Anteater. This animal is generally considered a descendant of the Miocene genus Neotamandua, also proposed to be the ancestor of giant anteaters of Earth today. Though some species in this genus are assumed to have been arboreal, assembly researchers assumed the ancestor of the Goliath and giant anteaters was terrestrial given their many anatomical similarities. However, others suggest the giant anteater of Earth may have only gone to ground once the more arid conditions of the Pliocene altered the status quo of South America, in which case the similarities in body plan and locomotion are a result of convergent or parallel evolution. Regardless, the Goliath anteater is usually given its own genus and species, as they are generally distinct animals in more ways than just size. Throughout the anchored period, the prairies of northern Nikar were far more biodiverse in flora than they are today, thanks to the floral turnover caused by the arrival of houze grass. Back then, before the firegrass arrived, there were several termite and ant species present in these prairies. There was a bounty for any insectivore, but being out in the open is dangerous. The alvarezsaurids were by far the most successful of this niche, using tremendous speed and agility to evade aerial predators. The anteater took a different approach: size. They got increasingly large for both locomotive efficiency and as predator deterrent. Like the giant anteater, they are surprisingly proficient gallopers, able to run over 30 miles per hour over short distances. They can also defend themselves quite well with arms adapted to rip open cement-strong termite mounds. Being so large and cursorial means that they can efficiently travel between nests. However, they were ultimately capped at around 400 pounds because a lot of the termites and ants were simply too small to support much larger sizes. This all changed around 500,000 years ago with the arrival of the houze termite. These termites are the largest species in their clade. Larger size means larger tunnels, which can be more efficiently exploited by tongues of larger anteaters. Their nests were tougher, but anteaters could get bigger to more easily break in. While so many other native animals around them struggled and perished in the extinction and turnover, the Goliath anteater absolutely thrived, quickly doubling in size in the geological blink of an eye. Unfortunately, they would get some competition of their own from the east: the giant pangolin. These animals evolved alongside huge termites on Kyrule. It is not unusual for them to weigh around a ton, sometimes more. Balancing at the hips, They have an extremely efficient stride, and a sensitive sense of smell means they waste no time and effort between feeding opportunities. Normally, when two animals occupy the same niche, one of them is driven to extinction or forced to adapt. However, there are exceptions. This was one such case. The anteater may be enormous, but it's around a third the size of an adult pangolin. Their metabolic demands are higher given their greater activity level, but being smaller means they can exploit different parts of the termite mound. In short, the two can share the same resource. This also is of great benefit to other insectivores, who can come and go once the two giants have had their fill. In the observations of the shoe, at this feast, the giant pangolin is the provider, opening up the rock-hard nest. The anteater is the enforcer, making sure predators stay away, and smaller insectivores wait their turn. With this partitioning, an entire entourage of insectivores can make their way across the prairie, exploiting a tremendous source of protein overlooked by other predators of a similar size. The pangolin also benefits from having the more active anteater defending their young. Meanwhile, the pangolin provides protection from larger predators that might threaten the anteater. Naturally, there are only so many mounds, and typically half the colony is consumed in feeding. In order to let the nest recover, anteaters and pangolins must stay on the move. Though both species are quite successful and stable, there are thousands of mounds in some regions, and they must maintain a fairly low population, given the need to keep moving and not overexploit a given area. Though they are formidable, Goliath anteaters are not without their predators. Hyenas and prairie cockatrice aren't much of a threat on their own, but both are social predators, and even if the anteater can sometimes fend off or even kill a few, cockatrice and hyena have both been documented, taking down even the largest male anteater. The harakundi is perhaps their most common predator, being faster and nimble enough to evade the deadly swipes of their claws. The cooperation of pangolin and anteater benefits both species in terms of predator defense. Harakundi might bring down a lone anteater, but would be wary of a pangolin, and hyenas and cockatrice that might seize a young pangolin can be kept at bay by the anteater. Mothers of both species are especially likely to bond with one another for this mutual benefit. Cheers to Anthony for sponsoring this episode. While I bravely covered the species and the pangolin and insectivore episodes, it was nice to give them a more complete context and history and updated profile. Old design wasn't awful, but it was rushed, and this time I got a chance to make it look a bit more active and athletic, something I wanted to emphasize with this taxon. Next week, we will get to know another xenarthran clade a bit better, the burrowing sloths. Looking forward to digging into their natural history. Thanks again to Anthony, to my Patreon patrons for your support, and thank you so much for watching. Cheers, folks!